In this video, we'll talk about local and long-distance goods traffic, how to lay out the yards, and how you can scratch build the details.
Hello and welcome to another video tutorial. In this video tutorial we will talk about goods traffic. I will show you how I operate my goods traffic on the layout. I will also show you how I planned and laid out my yards. Both the yards around the industries and the switching yard at the main station, which receives and sends goods both south, north and from the branch line. So it's kind of a junction there. So maybe it kind of gives you idea of how you could set up your goods traffic. I think the goods traffic is it's a nice way to, challenge yourself a bit more than just watching train passes by. We will also look at some relevant details you can add to a switching yard, for instance. Otherwise, the switching yard is just gravel and tracks, so it's maybe not so exciting, but there are quite a few other things you can add. And it also depends a bit on what era you're modeling and what environment, of course. So let's get started.
For me, goods traffic is like a puzzle, like the Rubik's Cube. Coming home tired after work, well then I would like a Rubik's Cube like this. And then I run my long-distance goods trains. They depart from the shadow stations, also terminates there. I simply just watch them roll by. The long-distance trains are typically made up only from one type of car, but the era varies. I've also tried to run goods traffic on my layout according to the Fremo system. But honestly, to do that alone it feels like solving a cube like this. Some guy solves that cube in less than 2 minutes, but that's not me. I'm instead running my local goods trains according to a simplified system, based on waybills and car cards. Goods traffic like this can be run on any layout, but it makes more fun and more efficient if you also did some planning of your yards ahead of building your layout. I will show you a few of my yards and how they are laid out. Let's start with the harbor. The access to the harbor is through a branch line, which could be shut off for switching operations. That is something you typically won't do with the main lines, because that would stop all of the traffic. As you see here, the harbor got 2 loading tracks. The track to the left is for loading diesel. The track to the right loads merchandise from the goods shed. So this train, for instance, is transporting diesel from the harbor up to the local station. Some of the days this train also transports coal, and the length varies depending on the number of car carts in the outbox for each station. Here's another example. This yard is set up as a siding with access to the main line in both ends. This yard receives goods trains from both directions, but the goods train will stop at the rival track. The shunter or the switcher loco can now pass on the passing track. This yard hosts 2 industries. To the left there is a sawmill. It has 2 loading tracks, one for receiving timber and one for outgoing planks. Down to the right there is a concrete mixing plant. It receives sand and chalk and delivers concrete. The maximum length for local goods trains on my layout is 6 cars plus locomotive. Sometimes the number of car cards in the outbox for all of the stations together exceeds 6 cars. Whenever that happens, you need to have the waiting track in the upper right. This track will then host the locomotive for the extra goods train, which will depart later on the day. If you're running steam era, then this track can also be used to host a steamer, which replaces the locomotive in the goods train when that is sent back to the shed for maintenance. This third and last example of yards on my layout is the central connecting point, the switching yard at the main station. The switching yard handles both northbound traffic and southbound traffic, as well as the traffic to the branch line, which connects to this main station. On the very top we have the main lines. Under that is the passing track. The passing track here is a passing track both for the shunter and the branch line traffic. Under that is the arrival track for incoming goods train, both from south and north. There are two waiting tracks. One to the left is for the shunter. The one in the upper right hand corner is for locomotives pulling extra train. The yard ladder has 3 tracks. One for goods going to north, one for south and one for the branch line east. The working principle for this yard is first in, first out. That means that the innermost cars leave first. That is easily accomplished by letting the shunter pull the entire set of cars out and attach the last car to the waiting goods train. The storage boxes for the car cards with its waybills is arranged in the same way. The car cards which came with the cars today is put in inbox. On day 2 it's moved to the loading box, and on day 3 it's moved to the outbox and leaves the yard. Running goods traffic like this is really fun. So if you want to try it out, I have another tutorial which explains more in detail of how to set up and arrange, make all the cards and everything, and I'm putting up a link in the upper right hand corner to that tutorial now. Once you finished the planning and got the track work in place, you probably want to add some details to your yards. Then the most common detail, at least here in Europe, is the concrete cable channels. These are very easy to make in large quantities from thin cut styrofoam. This is manufactured by Scandor. You find this product under floors in your local DIY shop. These are laid out on the floor ahead of laying wooden floor on top to prevent squeaking. This is really a multi-purpose material used for inner tunnels, road surfaces, and in this case, concrete channels for cables. It also got the backside printed with a square pattern with a 1 centimeter spacing. I went out line side to measure these concrete channels and found them to be 50 centimeters wide and 70 centimeters long. However, there are different sizes available and also it differs a bit between different countries. So check what the measurements are for your concrete channels. Divide that with the scale you're working with and mark the length along the long side of your styrofoam sheet on both sides. With those markers in place, it's pretty easy to engrave all of those concrete stones using a blunt knife, so you're not cutting through the styrofoam. That is not what we want to do here. This one was so blunt I had to make 2 passes. But then it starts to look pretty good. We will now first add a pin wash, which consists from burnt umber brown and black paint, which I mix with 50-50 with water and some alcohol to reduce the water tension. Then I'm pin washing on each of the engraved slots and removing the excess paint which is landed on surface using a wetted sponge. With that in place, it's just to cut the strips. I paint the top and the sides of the strips using a acrylic gray color, a concrete gray color. And I add the paint kind of thin so the pin washed black lines still show through after I completed the painting. If you like, you can enhance the surface structure by adding a light gray paint. It's dry brushed onto the surface. Wipe most of the paint off on a piece of paper and then dry brush the surface. Leave that to dry and then it's just to apply some glue. Scenic glue on the backside, or PVA glue if you like, Elmer all-purpose. It's not very sensitive, it's just so it's water-based and do not damage the styrofoam. Then just press it in place like this. You see here the little connector box I'm fiddling with. We're gonna build some of those too. They're very easy to build. They look a bit different between different countries. In my area they were made from wood, so I'm also making them from wood. If they're made from metal, I've seen that down in Germany, for instance, then it might be better to make them from sheets of styrene. I know that Evergreen has sheets which is suitable for this. I'll cut them to size and then just grind or sand the edges 45 degrees, put some glue and join them together. Remove excess glue, and then the top piece is a 0.4 millimeter thick plywood, like this. All you need to do now is to add a concrete socket. I used the same styrofoam as I did for the concrete channels, and then I paint it in a light green paint. Quite often you see line side that they have removed the top lids, the concrete lids, to inspect the cables underneath. And we're going to do an installation like that here as well. This is typically the kind of detail which really enhances the entire look. Remove excess glue, and here we have our concrete channel made of 0.4 millimeter thick plywood. Paint it in the same gray as we painted the concrete channel. This is a copper thread. I painted black. All I do is I put them into the channel and glue them in place there with fast set glue. The removed lids are made from 0.4 millimeter plywood, which has been painted gray. Then it's just to make a cutout in your channel made from the styrofoam, remove it, and then insert this piece instead. Push in the cable ends into, and then just glue the loose lids onto, first to cover the joint between the styrofoam and this wooden part, and then some lids on the side. Fill with the glue and add your favorite fine ballast around. This is what it will look like then. This is typically a detail which attracts the viewer's eye. And line side it looks like this. So due to it's very soft, it's very shapeable, so it's easy to apply even after you ballasted. Other realistic details you can add is waiting houses for the shunting crew, as well as a water tower and water cranes. These three things are mainly valid if you're running or modeling the steam era. Another nice yard detail is the yard tower. It should be placed at the entrance of the yard. It's also very valid for modern eras, but then automatic tower or abandoned and disused.
Well, a lot can be said about goods traffic and operations on model railroads. I hope this got you a bit inspired and curious about how to develop goods traffic on your layout. If you liked the video, please help others to find this video by giving it a thumbs up. If you have any questions at all about the goods traffic or whatever in this video or about my layout, please post them in the comment field below and I'll try to respond to them as soon as possible. Did you know that this video channel is made possible because a few of you viewers are supporting the channel? So think of this as a low-cost magazine subscription and get over to Patreon and set up a support account there. Or make a one-off donation via the PayPal dialog found in the video description below. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and enable the little bell, and you will get a notification once next video gets published. Until that happens, see ya!